and welcome again to another episode of This Song Sucks, a podcast where three pals get together and talk about the music that we hate. I'm Josh Kavanaugh, and as always, I'm joined by Hayden, dank-ass Nugs Crawford. How's it going, Hayden?
Oh, Mama sings, you gotta do, Josh. You gotta do.
Of course. And our guest host today, very special guest, is Hannah, making Hayden jealous because she lives in New Orleans. Hayes. How's it going, Hannah?
It's going great, Josh. Thanks for asking.
We're so glad to have you here. Hannah is a writer/editor specializing in field guides for cities and road trips, right? That kind of thing?
Yes, that is true.
You've recently finished an update of your New Orleans guide, correct?
Yes, I did. I work for a company called Wild Sam, and we make funny little travel guides that fit in your pocket, and they have a lot of cool, interesting things in them. And sometimes we have to update them because they're print books.
Awesome.
I have three on my coffee table. They're awesome.
Indeed. Hayden's a big supporter.
Well, Hannah may not be a musician like Hayden and I. Your job has kind of afforded you the opportunity to write quite a bit about music, particularly as it relates to culture of the American South. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping your presence here will provide a well-reasoned journalistic balance to my incessant pedantry and Hayden's irreverent nonsense.
Right. I'm going to go with transparency as the new objectivity, so that will be the lens of my journalistic integrity here.
Perfect. And I also, when I was kind of looking up some of your stuff so I could talk intelligently about you, I saw on your website that you share a particular trait with one of our other guest hosts, Adam Morrow, which is your unrepentant love of Duke's mayonnaise.
Yes, no, Adam and I, that's definitely a cornerstone of our friendship, for sure.
Crunchy is salivating right now.
He definitely uses it in many more unorthodox ways than I do.
Do you know what Adam is doing right now? He is sitting at a tennis tournament in the morning in Cincinnati. I mean,
right.
Good Lord. Good God, Adam.
Truly, honestly.
Well, if we ever have you and Adam on at the same time, we'll have to make sure we don't veer into mayonnaise talk too much.
Or do.
We have definitely talked about his, he does Cheez-Its dipping them into mayonnaise.
Yeah, I've seen him do it.
Yeah, I mean, he does it openly, but we've talked about, could you turn that into a casserole? Could you turn it into, we get deep on that, yeah.
Oh,
God, he's disgusting.
I know, it's a lot.
Let's not get too deep into it. Our subject today, like mayo, is one of the whitest things on the planet. Who are we going to be talking about today, Hannah?
We're going to be talking about Phish.
Oh, you mean Phish?
Phish, yeah. Blaine Duncan used to come into our rehearsals and say, hey, y'all heard about this band? I think they're called Phish.
Phish. He did it all the time.
And so you've selected actually 3 songs to talk about today. What are those 3 songs?
I've selected Tweezer, Chalk Dust Torture, and Suzy Greenberg.
My blood's boiling already, Hayes.
I know. I feel like I have to say this up front. I totally respect Phish's musical talent. I wish that I was an eighth as talented as Trey Anastasio at anything. I don't fault anyone for liking Phish. I wish that I could like them. It looks like a lot of fun. I just can't. I hate it so much. I feel like if you took one of those 3-foot hand-blown glass bongs that have all the doohickeys on them and put it into a Discman and you could listen to it. It's like if you took a piece of Adam Durowitz's hair and held it to your ear like a seashell. That's what would come out of it was Phish songs. I hate them so much.
One time I was listening in my high school car, I was listening to Stash really loudly in the high school parking lot, and this girl came up to me and she's like, Hayden, what the hell are you listening to? I was like, oh, it's just Phish. She was like, it sounds like a guitar and a piano are fighting each other inside of your car.
It's true.
We're already off to a great start here. This is why we wanted to have you on. And Hayden and I were talking before, a couple of days ago, that the 3 songs you selected were, in fact, the Fishiest of Phish songs.
They're definitely the ones that I hear on my boyfriend Reed's Sirius XM subscription the most, and they're the ones where I have contemplated tucking and rolling out of the car.
I just want to make it clear, too, that I am an unabashed Phish supporter. I have loved Phish always, and I will defend them to the death for many reasons that we'll get into later. But they also suck. I'm also aware of that.
You can hold these 2 disparate ideas in your head at the same time, right?
Yes, I can.
To sort of back up the wisdom of your selections here, Hannah, Phish.net, their fan website, has very detailed statistics on like every single song they've played at every show. And the 3 songs that you have selected are probably the most played. In fact, I think none of them fall under 23%, as in that's how many Phish shows they've appeared on. So
Yes.
if you were to go to 4 shows, you would most likely hear at least one, if not all 3 of these songs.
I mean, you almost always hear Chalk Dust, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chalk Dust, Torture, and particularly Tweezer. I myself had never actually heard Suzy Greenberg until this week, and that's only because I'm the rare idiot who just likes to listen to the Phish studio records.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you now live in a post Suzy Greenberg life. I too lived in a time where I had never heard that song, and I would give anything to go back.
Oh, those halcyon days of just, not having to live with it.
Not having a effing clue about that song.
You can say fuck on this podcast, Hannah. It's okay.
Oh, thank you, Hayden. I didn't ask beforehand.
Hayden has said far worse things than the word fuck, so...
I can only imagine.
I have to be cut out.
Hayden is an artist with his swearing.
All right, so let's jump right into a little background on the band. I want to start off right off the bat here saying that researching for this episode has been particularly challenging, probably more so than any thus far. Not only does the band, have they been around forever, but there's just enormous amount of deep dive material about everything. But really the big problem was every tidbit of information, every footnote, every paragraph of content I found online is so riddled with specific references to show dates, concerts, and various live versions of all their songs that it was really difficult to piece together any sort of meaningful linear narrative.
Much like their lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Hayden, you're supposed to be on their side.
I am, but I'm fully aware of what's wrong with them. I'm realistic about my love, okay?
It is like being into Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and I also hate those things too. So maybe that's why I don't like Phish. I don't know.
There's another point against them for sure. So going right into it, the band was formed in 1983 by guitarist Trey Anastasio and Jeff Holdsworth, bassist Mike Gordon, and drummer John Fishman, while all of them were students at the University of Vermont. According to Phish, the biography, Anastasio heard Fishman playing the drums in his dorm room and asked if he and Holdsworth could come jam with him. So right off the bat, we've got that jamming.
Hell yeah, jamming, bro.
Going straight in.
Yeah.
Dorm room jamming.
Yeah. This story is offensively white.
The story's offensively white.
Vermont jamming.
It really is. We're in Vermont. We're at college. We're asking to jam.
Oh,
Everything's
man.
Great.
Man, so the band, they played their first show in December of '83 on in a cafeteria on campus. And the set was mostly classic rock covers, but also included some songs by their jam band forefathers, the Grateful Dead.
Wasn't Trey in a Grateful Dead tribute band or something?
I think at some point, I don't know if it was before or during or after this.
I'll go ahead and apologize now. Much like Trey most of his life, I have consumed way too much marijuana before this taping. So bear with me.
Living that West Coast life.
Yeah, these weed mints start rolling in pretty strong.
So after their first show, apparently, I found this story. I don't know how true it is because it's mostly just forum posts that talk about it. But the band didn't play for almost another year because Anastasio was kicked out of college for a semester. And according to these things I found online, the story is that he broke into a science lab, stole a human hand and a goat heart. He tried to send them in the mail to a friend with a note that said, "I gotta hand it to you. You've got heart."
I saw online that they kept saying the prank, and I was just like, I wish that I had the energy or want to know what it was.
I hope that's true because you have to be a special kind of idiot to think that you can send a human hand through the U.S. mail
without any repercussion whatsoever.
Right.
It's a wonder he didn't get sent to an asylum or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, he returns next year to the university, reunites with the band. They finalize the name Phish. And so I looked into the origins of the name. One origin that I found is it's an onomatopoeia of the sound of a brush on a snare drum or the sound of escaping air from a balloon.
Or escaping nitrous into a lung.
Yeah. Even better. Anastasio has said that it comes from their nickname for John Fishman, while Fishman himself has said it was the sound of an airplane taking off. And that only makes sense to me if you are a person who has never heard an airplane ever in your entire life.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that.
Nope, not at all.
So they would add pianist Paige McConnell as a permanent member in 1985. Jeff Holdsworth would leave the band in early 86. And I didn't know anything about this guy, but I found a funny anecdote about him leaving the band. And this is from The Phish book, 1999. Anastasio says, "The four of us moved into a house, and one night there was a knock on the door. I open it and find a thin guy with a big button on that said, 'The Son, Jesus.' I didn't recognize Jeff at first. He had undergone a genuine transformation and looked completely different. We had just recorded the album Junta, so I played David Bowie for him. He made me turn it off after 2 minutes into the jam, claiming that the devil was making me play that kind of music."
Oh, no. No, Jeff. I mean, looking at Jeff online here, he looks kind of like Trey. I mean,
Well, apparently he just finished his electrical engineering degree and just worked as
decided to love God.
I mean, I'm not much of a religious person, obviously, but I would agree that it probably was a divine intervention that kept him from having to play 35-minute versions of his songs for 40 years.
He's like the opposite of Stuart Sutcliffe, where you're always like, wow, to have left the Beatles, like what a sad, unfortunate event. He had no idea. This is the opposite of that.
Yeah, he's like, woo, escape that mess.
Yes, dodge that bullet. Good on you.
So, continuing on, from what I could find online, the band mostly toured around the Northeast United States in their early years, growing a devoted fan base that would follow them around and attend all their shows. Their first show outside of the Northeast was in '88 in Colorado, so they had grown enough in that time period of like 5 or 6 years to start touring across the country. And in early 1989, they played a show at the Paradise Rock Club in Boston. And apparently they had been trying to book this venue for years, but the owner kept turning them down because he had never heard of the band before. So the band just took a huge risk and paid to just rent out the entire venue, and they sold the show out. This would kind of be seen as like their breakthrough because it proved that they could fill these larger venues. And it also marks kind of a really incredibly productive period for the band. They released 5 albums in the span of 1989 to 94, 3 of which appeared on the Billboard 200 chart. They would begin headlining major amphitheaters beginning in 93. I kind of would parallel their success and their kind of quote-unquote grassroots rise, similar to another band we've talked about, which is Dave Matthews.
Well, I could have sworn you were going to say 311.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about them yet, though.
I've talked about grassroots before, though.
But, I mean, it's the same kind of thing where they were playing mostly college bars and clubs, and they encouraged fans to tape the shows and share it. Phish would also kind of become one of the early bands to really use the internet to spread their music around, and I think that had a lot to do with their continued growth of the fan base in the mid-90s. 94 was a huge year. They released their 5th studio album. It would peak at number 34 on the Billboard 200. They released Down with Disease from that album.
Is this Hoist or is this Rift?
The album is Hoist from 94.
Hoist, okay, yeah. Isn't Sample in a Jar also on Hoist?
No, it's a later album.
Oh, okay.
God, I hate that one. I almost brought it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that one's a pretty sore spot for me too.
I think that was the first Phish song that I finally kind of walked into it and was just like, what is this? Why?
You're a liar, Josh. Sample in a Jar is on Hoist.
Is it on the Hoist? Okay.
Fucking lying bastard.
Also, Hoist? Like, what?
The album cover is a picture of a horse being lifted up by some apparatus.
Yeah, it's not the best cover.
But anyway, the song from that album, Down with Disease, would end up becoming their single best charting song on Billboard, which was never on the Hot 100, but it peaked at number 33 on the mainstream rock tracks in June of 94. It's also the only song that the band has a music video for, and it received some airplay on MTV. And I remember seeing a video of them playing on MTV, online, but when I was probably in college or high school. And I thought, was it TRL, which would be really weird, but I went and found it. In July of 92, they played as a house band for this very short-lived show called Hangin' with MTV. The show lasted approximately 13 episodes, and it seemed to be some kind of call-in show where like there was a live studio audience and a host, and like viewers would call in and vote between two videos that were like slugging it out, I guess. And whoever won would go on to the next week to compete with another video.
Interesting.
And it's just really weird because it is kind of a Total Request Live kind of vibe to it. But Phish is there as his house band playing their weird shit. And you see like the youth MTV in the crowd like getting like charged up. And Mike Fishman is up there with his fucking vacuum cleaner playing it into a microphone. It's just this very bizarre dichotomy. I was like, how did this make any sense whatsoever?
The other artists I've seen pop up for this show, Faith No More and The Cure. And Phish definitely stands out. It's an odd choice here.
Was he wearing his muumuu at this point? Like, when did the muumuu happen? It's so we're already in muumuu days.
I think my understanding is that the muumuu has always been there. Maybe not in the very early days, but I think most videos you find online, even from
did he wear jeans before the muumuu? What was pre-muumuu for Fishman? Can I Google pre-muumuu Fishman to see what happens?
I don't think I could handle that image. I think it would be a cursed image.
Oh man.
I'm going to try to find out. Move on without me.
So in 94, again, this big year, the band also started their tradition of donning quote-unquote musical costumes for their Halloween shows, where the one set would just be covering an entire album by another band. In this case, it was the Beatles' White Album, and these are kind of some of their most popular shows. The band performed on Dave Letterman for the very first time, playing Chalk Dust Torture at the end of the year. This would be the first of 7 performances on the show. Apparently, David Letterman really liked Phish.
And I love David Letterman. David Letterman is like a major reason why I am the way I am, because I watched it from the time I was very small. And I respect David Letterman for liking Phish. Again, I wish I could be one of these people.
Well, Hayden and I, too, also love Letterman a lot. And you see, I think he really did genuinely like Phish, but there was a time when I'm thinking, like, is this just sort of done ironically? Does he actually like this band, or is he just like, hey, look at these weirdos I'm putting up here?
What do we know, like, what he said at some of the end of their sets? Because he'd always go out and be like, that was tremendous. Or he would, like, be like, okay, well, if he didn't like something.
Well, that was something.
Yes, that he would definitely use that line.
To follow up, it is rumored that Fishman began his donut muumuu tradition in 1988.
Okay, so not from the very beginning.
Oh my God, the year I was born. He's been muumooing that long.
He's been muumooing a long time.
I've never existed on the planet pre-muumuu. That's remarkable. That's really something. That's tremendous.
It's very easy to get lost in these forum posts, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting real distracted.
So, continuing on, in 95, it would be another year of expanding the band's fan base. Actually, in 94, they capped off with the infamous New Year's Eve show where they rode around the arena in a hot dog float.
Madison Square Garden, 95.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I have seen the hot dog float because it's at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It's hanging in the lobby, right?
Mm-hmm, it is.
So in 95, the video for Down with Disease appeared on Beavis and Butthead, which kind of put them in front of an audience that they may not have had exposure to before. Another thing that kind of helped expand their fan base in 95 was the death of Jerry Garcia. So Grateful Dead ended, and a lot of these guys who've been following the Dead around forever kind of naturally shifted into Phish heads.
Wow, they gotta be guys, Josh. Watch your gender.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry for assuming that the audiences of both the Grateful Dead and Phish are mostly dudes.
Yeah.
There might be data to back me up on that.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a smidge.
The band also released their first live album, a live one, in 95, and it was their first record to be certified gold.
That was my first live experience with Phish, because I had Picture of Nectar in like the studio record, but then I think a live one was my first introduction to them, to what they really do. In particular, the stash on that show is pretty impressive.
Any Phish fan you talk to will tell you got to hear it live. So them starting to sell their live records. I mean, everyone could go on and share their bootleg recordings, but this was like an actually pressed record that was professionally recorded. In 96, they held their first festival called the Clifford Ball, which was at a decommissioned Air Force base in upstate New York. And this would become a tradition, having these kind of big festival things. But this first one had 70,000 attendees, which was the band's biggest crowd to date. And it was actually the largest single concert by attendance in the U.S. that year.
Damn.
Which is crazy to think about.
Shoot.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those things that it's always baffling to think about how many tickets they sell to concerts every year.
Have either of you ever watched the documentary about this time period, Bittersweet Motel?
I've seen parts of it, yeah.
Reed told me to watch that before going on the podcast, and I said, I don't think I can do that today. I don't think that's too much.
I'll save you the time that it's just a bunch of what you'd expect and then a long section of Trey Anastasio equating soloing to coming. It's really awkward.
Well, then Reed disappears from the couch that we're sitting on, and I go, I wonder where Reed went.
He's watching it.
And
watching.
I was looking at my phone, and it was just one of those things where you're like, oh, that person's gone. Where are they? And then I heard it being queued up in the background. I was like, oh, my God.
Probably like the 50th time he's watched it, too.
I've probably watched it 10 times. It's pretty good.
Oh, Lord.
So in the period from 96 to 2004, the band would release 6 studio albums and 2 live albums, all the while just like touring like crazy, playing festivals. Interesting side note, I didn't know this, but the band was the opener for Santana's European tour in the summer of 1996.
This is pre-Smooth Santana.
I was just about to say, it doesn't count because it was pre-Smooth Santana.
This is post-Good Santana and pre-Smooth Santana.
Okay. But I would have to imagine that if Hayden were like the concert promoter and he got to name the tour, he would have called it Wheedly Deedly Fest 96.
Wheedly Wah. Like Carl from Aqua Teen.
The band took a hiatus starting in October of 2000, but they came back in late 2002 recording a new album, which was Round Room, in just 4 days. 2 years later, in May of 2004, Anastasio announced on Phish.com that the group was breaking up after their planned festival show in Coventry, Vermont later that year.
This is around the time that 2002, 2004 would be around the time that I had my first jam band concert experience. And I wanted to tell our listeners about it, if I may be so inclined.
I would love to hear it.
Just since you mentioned 2002, I'm pretty sure that's the year this happened. It's not Phish, but I somehow convinced my parents to allow me and 3 friends to drive my car to Mobile to see Widespread Panic.
You're 16 years old at this time, right?
Yeah, 16, maybe 17 barely.
Just a small Dino.
Yeah, just driving my Honda Accord with all my Phish and Widespread Panic stickers on the back down to see Panic in Mobile. And it's like, I think it's the first time I had a hotel room, all that kind of stuff. But so we go into the lot. I don't know, Josh, are you familiar with what the lot means in terms of the jam band world?
Like you're just hanging out in the parking lot, right, beforehand?
Yeah.
Well, that's where the drugstore is.
Yes.
Like the lot, always it's where you go buy drugs.
And the bootleg T-shirts,
right,
which is really important. Yeah.
So we go to the lot thinking we're hot shit, 17-year-olds, and we find a guy who's selling mushrooms. And this guy is about what you'd expect, Birkenstocks and like dirty hair, but is like, you could just tell that we're like too inexperienced to really be doing this. And he gives us this bag of mushrooms, and he's like, all right, but for real, you guys, like, don't eat more than one of them. They're like really potent, like for real, like don't do it. We're like, oh, okay, thanks, dude, thanks, bro, whatever.
God, fuck.
I'm totally imagining you doing this. Or no, wait.
Thanks, dude. So we go back to the hotel, and of course, eat the entire bag and ignore his advice.
Between how many of you?
No.
4. I mean, it should have been like 3 servings. We just like tripled up on it, essentially.
My God.
Oh no.
And so then we go into the I forget where the show was, like the equivalent of the BJCC in Mobile, whatever that is. It was like a pretty large room. And in the second song, I have a total out of body experience and faint in the middle of the crowd.
Oh my God.
People around me said that I just turned ghost white. My eyes got really big, and I just fell over in the middle of the crowd. I was above myself watching it all happen at the time. But they're like dragging me. A friend grabs me and drags me out of the crowd, which of course sends everybody else down a spiral. and 2 more friends turn white and drop to the ground too, have to be taken out of the concert.
Dropping like
Like
flies.
suddenly a panic show's become like a Pentecostal service. The kids are just like falling out and like, what's going on?
Oh, it was a total disaster. The problem is my friends left the venue and there's no readmittance. So, but I just got drugged to the side where there was like out of the pit and like drank some water, cooled off, had a great show. But they couldn't get back in, so they got kicked out essentially after the second song.
Not a Phish show, but probably a very common occurrence at Phish shows.
I think the experience is worth discussing considering the relevance to what probably happens at every Phish show.
So around the time that Hayden was fainting,
Just fell out.
Trey Anastasio was writing his farewell address on the website. He says, I got together with Mike, Page, and Phish and talked openly about the strong feelings I've been having that Phish has run its course and that we should end it now while it's still on a high note. Once we started talking, it quickly became apparent that the other guy's feelings, while not the same as mine, were similar in many ways. Most importantly, that we all love and respect Phish and the Phish audience far too much to stand by and allow it to drag on beyond the point of vibrancy and health. We don't want to become caricatures of ourselves, or worse yet, a nostalgia act. By the end of the meeting, we had realized that after almost 21 years together, we were faced with the opportunity to graciously step away in unison, as a group, united in our friendship and our feelings of gratitude.
They're such nice guys.
4 years later, they're back together.
That money, son.
Yeah. So this is a quote from a New York Times article in March of 2009, which is when their comeback tour started. Anastasio also had a mission in mind. As a longtime fan of Depression-era swing bands, he has been thinking about Phish's role in the current recession. For people on hard times, we can play long shows of pure physical pleasure. They come to dance and forget their troubles.
Damn, Trey.
It's like a service commitment. You know, it's good to know that after the excesses of capitalism have dealt yet another devastating blow to the American middle class, Phish will still be there to provide crunchy grooves for us to drop a bean to.
And strong shrooms. Crunchy grooves and strong shrooms.
It's a service. He's doing us a service by coming back, right?
Yeah, that's kind of an asshole thing to say.
I'm fine, thank you.
How much Oxycontin have you railed up his nose before he said that?
Yeah, that is heroin talking.
Jeez. And so since the official reunion, the band has released 4 studio albums, 10 live albums.
They all suck.
They continue to tour.
The studio records.
Although their touring is much less grueling. They went from like 50 shows a year, like 25.
I will say I've been watching a lot of videos from this month of the tour that Phish is currently on, and I'm a little on the fence about whether they've become a character of themselves or not.
Well, that's why I brought that up.
Their Great Fear. Yeah, they're great. Their Great Fear in 2004. I'm on the fence about whether it's happened at this point. Like, they're pretty brittle.
I mean, he says he doesn't want to become a caricature and worn out after 21 years. What makes you think 40 years is going to make it any?
Yeah, exactly.
They were caricatures of themselves from the moment they started.
Yeah.
Oh, swish.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I mean, I don't know. He should just embrace that. Like they're caricatures, literally, to their audience.
She yanked my tunic and dangled my stash is their most known lyric. I mean, the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So as you said, they performed for the first time since the COVID pandemic, beginning July 28th, 2021. And they actually, just as a positive note, they are requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test at all of their shows, which makes me wonder, like, this super just like gnarly hippies showing up, like, oh man, where's my COVID card, bro?
Oh no, dude, you forgot it, bro.
Oh shit.
And your phone's dying, dude.
Hey everyone, just want to jump in here for a minute to let you know that we now have official This Song Sucks merch for sale. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and coffee mugs available. Head on over to thealabamatake.com and click on the shop link at the top of the page. You can also pick up all the other Alabama Take goodies, like the fan favorite Done Up Real Good t-shirt. Again, head to thealabamatake.com and follow the shop link. Thanks for your support, and now back to the episode. So that's all I have to say about the band. Let's jump into the music. I have somewhat of an extended diatribe about the band's fans and the music in general, But let's start with just the specifics of the 3 songs that Hannah has picked for us today. And I want to start with Chalk Dust Torture.
Which is actual torture for me to listen to.
It's a verified banger.
I'm actually like gripping the bottom of this desk because I know what's coming.
Well, it's an apt name then.
Also, which one did you pick? Because there's like Chalk Dust Tortures that are like 27 minutes long.
Yeah, bro. Have you heard the one from 4298?
There's some that are 45 minutes long. Okay. I mean, so from my perspective, as someone who's
There's no Chalk Dust that's 45 minutes long. Get your stats right.
Whatever.
They never go that long with Chalk Dust.
okay, it's still they've hit the half-hour mark plenty of times.
What do you have against scorching guitar work and catchy melody, Hayes?
It's weird. It's like I like a lot of live albums. I will listen to Steely Dan's live album. I will listen to War on Drugs. I can listen to them play for like a 30-minute song if they want to. But for some reason with Phish, it feels like it doesn't go together. It feels like 4 people playing their own shit in separate corners, and it's not combined. It's like a deconstructed BLT, or like, you know, when chefs like try to pick apart everything.
You get the lettuce on one side.
It's like clam chowder, but all the ingredients are on separate corners of the plate, and it's not even in a bowl. I don't know why I picked clam chowder. I'm losing my mind anticipating what we're about to listen to. I can't deal with it.
Like a deconstructed cake. It just gives you flour and sugar and eggs.
Yeah, there's just like literally a runny egg sitting in this bowl, and you're just like, okay.
It's an interesting point because as I've especially during the pandemic, I leaned pretty heavily on Phish as a positive type of music source to keep my head in the right place. And like when I was like really doing another deep dive and listening to them, like for a band that like exists because of their supposed live chemistry and like being one of the best live bands around, they don't really listen to each other very well.
Yes.
I think your point is pretty valid there because they really do kind of like just do their own thing and not follow each other the way you might expect them to do at this point.
Thanks for affirming my, I'm a perceptive person, Hayden. Thanks.
You don't have to be a musician to catch what you're talking about, Hannah. I think it's a very valid point that my biggest, again, I don't want to get too general yet, but it's the aimlessness of a lot of it.
Yeah, we're going nowhere with any of it.
To be fair, Chalk Dust Torture and Tweezer are recorded on a studio album. So my specific points are about that, but I still have plenty to criticize about each of them. I mean, Chalk Dust Torture, I'm going in order here of my most favorite of these 3 to my least favorite. And Chalk Dust Torture is probably one of my favorite like guitar riffs, like really just in general, not even just from Phish. I think it's a great example of like an effective, short and simple rock riff. However, even in the studio version, the arrangement relies on repeating it way too much. Like they could have removed it from a few sections in between vocal lines. Like they sing these verse lines and then just go back to that riff over and over again. And I think if they had just cut some of those out, the overall song would have been a lot tighter.
Right. Absolutely.
You're such a buzzkill, Josh.
Sorry. That's me, Buzzkill Kavanaugh. I also think that Anastasio's vocals on the recording are pitch shifted down.
Yeah, funny you should say that because that's a topic on the forums. I got to read this one.
Okay, go for it.
Just this one. We'll come back to this more later, but there is a thread. This is from username Poo Nutties. Is Trey's voice on the studio Chalk Dust from Nitrous? And which everybody's quickly like, no, it's just pitch shifted down, you idiot. But it's just funny. I couldn't not click on that.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't have my problem with it is not that it's like a studio trick. I just don't like the timbre of it. I think it sounds dumb. Like, what's the point of it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the point was.
Do you think it was like a vanity thing? Like a guy hearing his voice and thinking it was too high?
I don't know. I mean, he's heard himself plenty beforehand. It's just, they're probably just fucking
they're just fucked
high
up
as fuck and just want to do something weird.
Yeah.
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 They're definitely just fucked up.
That's easy enough.
And one thing I will say about this the studio version that's a positive, I like the chromatic ending of this song. I think it builds up to a quick and effective finish, which is not always the case when they do that kind of chromatic sort of dissonant type stuff, which is what happens for like the second half of the entire studio recording of Tweezer. And I remember liking Tweezer when I was a lot younger, like in high school. But after listening to it again, this week. I think I'm on the other side of the fence. I mean, the guitar riff is fine, but like Chuck Does Torture, it does the same thing where it just gets repeated too many damn times in this song. It's just way more egregious.
And then we haven't even gotten to the Twee prize. Like, there's always a reprise of this song that's too repetitive.
The reprise of Tweezer, I think, for like 16 bars is like a cool little build-up, but it just does it over and over again and then doesn't go anywhere.
I think you guys are totally missing the point of what Tweezer is.
Okay, what's the point of Tweezer?
What is the point?
Tweezer is a vehicle for a cosmic exploration. Tweezer is not a song. Like the song, if you listen to the studio version of Tweezer, who the fuck wants to listen to that? Like, it's a terrible song. Like the bookend, like. But what it becomes and what they reach for as a result of that vehicle is the point of Tweezer. It's not the song is really dumb.
But where is the vehicle going? Like, what are you talking about?
To the stars, bro.
You wouldn't understand unless you're there and you dropped your bean, man.
No, I do think that's part of why I can't figure it out. Could we like look at the lyrics of Tweezer together?
Yeah, no. See, yet again, not the point.
But I still feel like it's worth looking at. Like,
Okay.
What on earth is this?
Yes, Hannah, please pull it up and let's go through.
I really wanted Hayden to dramatically read these. Hayden,
Okay, I'll
will you
do it. I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it.
This song literally
Give me
makes
1
my
minute.
knees ache. It's so awkward.
My knees ache.
God.
All right, this is Tweezer by Phish. Won't you step into the freezer, seize her with a tweezer.
Jesus Christ.
It's going to be cold, 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 cold. That's it.
Wait, you forgot the last part of it.
Oh, excuse me. Look who's in the freezer, Uncle Ebenezer.
I know kindergartners who have wrote deeper shit. What the hell
The
is
funnier
this?
thing about this is they didn't even write these lyrics themselves half the time. Like a lot of times, they had somebody else write lyrics for them, and this is the best that person could do. What's that guy's name? Tom Marshall?
I forget his. Yeah, there's Tom Marshall. There's also a guy that I forget his name, but he's called the Dude of Life. But no, this particular one is all just
God, kill me.
just the core 4 members of the band.
Oh, no wonder it's particularly
Yeah.
bad.
Can we talk about this for just a second longer in the
Please.
food
Sure.
analogy context, which is Reed was like, the words are not the point. Just forget the words. And I was like,
I
no,
agree.
you can't, because this is like if you made a beautiful salad and then you squeezed shampoo on top of it. Like, you can't get past that. It's there. It's like... It doesn't make sense to say get past the words, then just like don't fucking have the words.
I'm sorry. I'm imagining you massaging KO with like a
Pantene Pro V.
dial. Like,
Yeah.
Some suave, cool ocean breeze.
I mean, or it's like don't use mayonnaise on your BLT. Like just go ahead and, put some Pennzoil on there or something. It's just like, it's like you can't get past something that's so bad and so not supposed to be there.
I got to side with Reed here, though, that the point of this song is really not the words. The point is what it goes to live. And like what they're going for is not attainable, really. Like, to me, that's the most fascinating aspect of Phish in general, is they're constantly reaching for something that they can't really achieve. And like watching a band constantly like climbing and trying to obtain something that's not really tangible I think it's interesting. But do they fail? Do they fail a lot? They fail constantly. But that's also part of the charm, that they have the balls to try over and over again. And Tweezer is a good example of that.
But like, what are they reaching for?
Transcendence.
How are we getting there with Uncle Ebenezer, Hayden?
Drugs, Hannah.
I have a little bit of this later on that we'll circle back around to this idea of the point of Phish being a search for transcendent splendor via long ethereal jams or whatever.
Totally.
But let's move on to the next song, Suzy Greenberg.
Oh.
This song, I think, in my opinion, might actually be the song that best demonstrates the aspects of Phish that people don't like about them.
Yes.
1, dumb lyrics, including the just maniac yelling of John Fishman before each chorus. Who knows what the hell he's saying? 2, hookless melodies. That's Phish's biggest problem. No one knows any of their songs because none of their songs have hooks. Does a song have to have a hook to be good? No. But of the hundreds of Phish songs, not a single one of them has any sort of melodic hook.
That's not true.
From the vocals.
I agree. It's like if you just put all of the paint on the canvas and swirl it around, you just get brown. Like, that's how I feel with all of their songs. I'm just like, it's a sea of turd brown where I cannot discern a single thing that's going on.
We need more writers on the show because your metaphors are on point today.
Yes.
Well, when I really hate something, I become very animated. I have a hard time writing about stuff that I'm just like, that's fine.
I will agree with you on Suzy on all the points thus far. I think Suzy Greenberg does suck pretty bad.
Yeah. Number 3 is bad singing. You know, and Hayden and I were talking about this the other day, and I looked because Suzy Greenberg is solely a live song. Phish.net has pages for every song, and they have a history. And so I looked on the page for Suzy Greenberg, and they had about 3 or 4 videos and versions to go listen to. Not a single version of the song where their harmonies in the chorus were even close to sounding good.
Yeah, they can't sing worth the shit.
Yes.
And it's gotten so much worse with time. Let me tell you, from this tour's videos, man,
yeah,
it's tough to listen to.
I mean, even ones from when the song was written were just not good.
This song for me is kind of like, okay, I need to tell you like a quick story about something that happened to me in college.
Excellent.
Was taking a class called The Origins of Scientific Thought, and I'm really glad I took the class. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. And I was studying for the final, and I was like, fuck this professor, I'm gonna get an A on this, because he was such a hard ass and he was such a freak, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I got so in my head about waking up at 8:30 to go to the final that I couldn't go to sleep. And I was also on the college radio staff, and I think that Phoenix album that had Listomania on it had just come out, and so many people over the course of the day played it that it was stuck in my head. And I just remember being in my kitchen chugging whatever alcohol that I think it was white wine in my fridge, trying to get myself to go to sleep because I had no NyQuil, and I was just like, I'm just gonna drink like a glass of white wine, and all I can hear in my head is Listomania. Like, I was having a breakdown. And this is like also very unlike me. Anyway, this song is Listomania for me as a 33-year-old. Like, the other night, I could not sleep. I needed to get on a plane really, really early in the morning. And all I can hear in my head is them saying, yeah, 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 and then Suzy Greenberg over and over. I almost had to come apart. I was like, I'm going to jump off my porch.
Well, I'm sorry we're making you relive that trauma right now.
I'm also sorry I made you live that trauma with me, but that's how I feel about this song.
I think we should clarify why you have so much exposure to Phish despite disliking them.
Oh, because Reed loves them, and he also insists on driving because he has Sirius XM. And you know, Reed, he doesn't have a gambling addiction, but the man likes to play a slot machine. And the dial on there, you know, it's just pulling the lever. It's like, what song am I going to get next? and he'll pass by 50 great songs, and then finally we settle on Phish, and that's what we listen to for the rest of the drive.
Oh gosh!
I will say, the last time I was in New Orleans riding around with y'all, it was on Phish radio the entirety of the time, which I was all about, but I could tell it was getting to you.
It's like I can handle it for like a 10-minute drive. I'm just like, Hannah, just let the man have this moment. It's okay.
Oh, gosh.
But oh god, one time we drove to the West Bank with it on, and I remember we were like going over the bridge, and I just screamed. I was just like, we can't do this anymore. I was like, I think I screamed, this isn't music. I don't know what this is, but this isn't music, and we have to stop listening to it.
Gosh.
Were you going to Fontainebleau on the West Bank? Is that what you were doing?
No, I think we went to the Target on the West Bank because we had to. We have like 2 annual trips to Target in our big box free city.
You're already going to Target, and Phish is blaring at you. I could see that causing a breakdown for sure.
I almost really just jumped out.
That's a personal hell, being stuck in a Target for eternity listening to Phish.
Oh God, so bad.
The last little aspect of Suzy Greenberg that I think is very demonstrative of Phish is it's the perfect example, I think, of this sort of milquetoast beat that I would say is like the textbook definition of a crunchy groove. Like you might call it a Birkenstock funk.
Birkenstock.
But whatever you call it, it's like 100%.
I got her.
We just invented a whole new genre of music.
Phish and all these other bands have invented this genre. But I mean, call it what you want, but it's primo material for hippie girls to noodle arm dance to.
Sure. Right.
And I'll go back in my next little part here. I'll talk about this a little more in depth, but like people are calling this funk when it's not.
Yeah, they're not.
No, that brings me to a point that I did want to bring up that I have prepared is that, oh shit, where did it go? Here it is. So like when they're describing the band on Wikipedia, they say Phish's music blends elements of a wide variety of genres, including funk, prog rock, psych rock, folk, country, jazz, blues, bluegrass, pop. You can't have it all. If life has taught us anything, it's you can't have it all. That's just nonsense. Like, pick a lane.
It goes back to what you were saying. If you mix all the colors, you just get brown, right?
Yes.
I need to mail you guys both a tin of weed mints. You know, I need to chill out.
You're not wrong.
So I want to go into a discussion, again, more about the fans and also about the music in general. But before we move on, do either of you guys have something specific you want to say about these three songs?
I think Suzy Greenberg might be like borderline misogynistic. What do you think, Hayden?
You know what? Let's pull these lyrics up.
Yeah.
Before we put this to bed. Wink.
I would like another dramatic reading.
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh my God. All right. Oh my God. Wow. All right.
They're so bad.
This is one of the ones that was written by the man known as the Dude Life.
I will just tell you, even despite listening to Phish my whole life, and like I would probably sing all these lyrics along with it if you're in the car, I've never like processed them before because they don't matter to me.
Right.
So this is despite having heard the song for decades, this is a shock to me to read them. Little Suzy Greenberg with her head caved in, soon to let me drown beneath the undertow. You better put that woman in a loony bin, 'cause you know I'd really like to be a part of her show. Suzy is an artist. She paints quite a lot. An artist she may be, but a genius she is not. She says she wants to be a sociologist, but she better first get checked by a neurologist, and then Suzy Greenberg 75 times.
It's like minimum 75 times.
Yeah, I don't like that.
The next verse is even worse.
Woo,
And
yeah.
it's like just this grand tradition of songs that people like love and sing along to or think are a bop. And then you look at the lyrics and you're like, oh my God, these are horribly sexist. Like, these are awful.
Suzy's about as faithful as a slot machine, pays off once in a while, then she robs you clean. She's always afraid that she's not sure what she's worth. She's out of her mind and she's not on this earth. Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm sorry to bring you to this level with me, Hayden.
At least Phish didn't write this one.
Yeah, you really can't. Again, Hayden has argued that you can't use the lyrics of Phish to as a detraction to them solely because no fan of Phish, no matter how hardcore, is going to stand up and to defend them at any great length.
I don't think any of them are going to really defend the songs that much either.
Probably not. So let's get into these fans, guys. I found a few things online that I wanted to share. So the tribal...
I'm trembling with anticipation right now.
Mm-hmm.
The tribal nature of Phish supporters has often engendered comparisons of Phish heads to juggalos.
Man,
Lord in heaven.
I did not think I was going to get to talk about ICP today, but fuck, I am glad you said that.
Miracles, Hayden, miracles.
Which means I can get to corn something like tangentially. So.
For those who don't know, juggalos are the hardcore fans of the Insane Clown Posse who often paint their face black and white makeup to look like the members of the band. I found there's a book, apparently. This guy went and embedded himself in both the Phish scene and the juggalo scene. The book is called You Don't Know Me, But You Don't Like Me. Phish, Insane Clown Posse, and My Misadventures with Two of Music's Most Maligned Tribes.
Interesting.
Huh.
I would read this.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in getting. I couldn't find like any sections of the book to read online. The guy's name is Nathan Rabin, Rabin. But here's a blurb from a review of the book that I think might be indicative. Both bands are steeped in their unique mythologies. Along the way, Rabin ran into people who defy the stereotypes. People with master's degrees among the Juggalos, and straight-edge people among the Phish heads. Each group's tours also created anarchic carnival atmospheres that celebrate and create the illusion of unending childhood. But Rabin got more than he bargained for when mid-tour with Phish, he had something resembling a nervous breakdown. The steady ingestion of psychotropic drugs, one accoutrement both camps had in ready supply, may not have helped his mental state. So, drugs are obviously a huge part of the Phish fan base, as this blurb and Hayden's story from earlier kind of hints at. And it really is. I think most people who have talked to a Phish person long enough, they kind of write it off as, oh, you just have to be super high to enjoy this. And I don't think the fan base is doing much to dissuade people of that opinion.
I'm just crunching down, man.
I will say it's really interesting to hear that quote, because I have said that to Reed. I'm like, this is circus music. It sounds like old-timey circus music with guitar solos. Like, it really does.
There are several songs like that.
And the atmosphere
Yes.
is a circus. It is a circus. It's I don't know.
And that attracts a certain kind of person. And it kind of makes sense that there's a certain cadre of people who would be into this kind of thing, even if the music is objectively not good. So, continuing on, I didn't ever heard of this before, but maybe Hayden, you have. Have you heard of the practice of tarping? Tarping, yes.
No.
So
Please enlighten me.
This is from a Wall Street.
Scared.
This is from a Wall Street Journal article from 2018 titled "Phish Fans Are Friendly."
Fucking Republicans.
Yes, exactly.
Ew.
The title of the article is "Phish Fans Are Friendly Until the Tarps Come Out to Save Seats." So the article, the easiest way to do it is this will be up in our show notes. You can go click on the link, but it has a YouTube video that shows this practice of tarping, which is where fans will dash out into the general admission area as soon as the gates open, and they are frantically throwing tarps over groups of seats in an effort to save multiple seats. So like everyone's out in the lot, right? Getting their drugs, getting
their crunch on,
dropping their bean.
Sucking some suds.
And they get one guy who is the fastest of foot, I guess, and he comes out there and throws a tarp over everything. And again, you can see this video. It's at Red Rocks. It's just.
I would expect this to happen at like a Kenny Chesney concert in Tennessee, not at a Phish concert. Honey, get the tarp out the truck.
Yeah, it looks like insects swarming over like a dead carcass. I mean, apparently this practice has often led to confrontations amongst fans.
Really?
There's one fan who is so well known for his aggressive tarping that the people on the message boards have dubbed him Antelope Greg.
Oh my God, like in reference to Run Like an Antelope, which is another song
It's
that I
one
hate.
of their songs, and I guess
Oh,
antelopes
you're crazy, Hannah.
Yeah.
That one I will say I think it's trying to get somewhere. I will say that I can ride along with that song for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Run Like an Antelope.
But then I quickly drop off.
I did just Google Phish fans fighting each other, so I'll check back in a moment.
Okay.
Tarping this is great because now we're combining two things that I hate so much. The only time that I have ever really gotten confrontational with someone is when they are in line at a place where it's like clearly you need to order before you sit down and there's not a lot of seats and someone puts their backpack or their grandma or somebody in a chair. I go into a blackout of rage. I don't even know. It's like you at the Widespread Panic show. I see myself above myself getting mad at someone about this.
I'm now imagining like Phish fans with like their Nana strapped to their back, running and just throwing her onto the seats.
Taking Mama to see
It's like, you're not more special than anyone else. Wait in line, order, and then sit down. Oh, it drives me bananas.
Oh, man. So to wrap up the content from this little article, there's a quote from a fan who's talking about, sort of these aggressive confrontations. And she says, if Phish fans can't solve this problem, what hope do we have of addressing larger, more pressing problems in society?
Welcome to the party. The punch is warm. This is what the earth is. Tarpers are everywhere.
Tarp earthers.
Yes.
So needless to say, I mean, this is just one example, but
Humanity is disgusting.
Yeah, hell is other people, as Hayden so eloquently says all the time.
yes. But examples abound of Phish fans who are supposed to be, groovy, laid back, really just being giant assholes.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of it's a lot more testosterone on the message boards than you might expect from some crunched out groove bros.
For sure.
It's like Liz Lemon says, all God's children are terrible. It's true.
They all need to Birkenstock their oh man, I lost it.
Their ego.
You had a good one started and you lost it.
It's the weed mint.
There it is. So moving on, I'll try to wrap this up here and get on to my examples. But what brought this about was I found these two articles from 2013. There's a pair of them, one of which is defending Phish, and one is a response to that article who says, no, it's okay to hate Phish. The first article was written by a guy named Stuart Henderson of the Huffington Post, that bastion of music criticism. The article's called Defending Phish, It's Not Them, It's You. And the defending is spelled with a PH instead of an F. So there you go. The author's argument starts off by admitting that Phish lyrics are terrible, but makes sure to note that the band seems to have an irreverent attitude about it, and all the lyrics stem from this sense of humor. He then follows that up with saying, it's a classic case of whataboutism, where he starts listing all the Beatles songs that have silly lyrics, like Yellow Submarine, I'm the Walrus, Mean Mr. Mustard,
Sure.
But then he jumps directly into saying that the reason people forgive the Beatles for their, weird, dumb lyrics, but not Phish, is because of snobbery. And this comparison is just completely ignoring the fact that, hey, maybe there's things in these songs from the Beatles that people like other than the lyrics. Whereas with
melodies.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say three of the most accomplished melodic composers of rock history. That's what they're missing.
Right. But this argument is a very common refrain I've found amongst Phish heads is what about the Beatles? And it's the Beatles had much different music and songwriting talents that Phish just don't have.
And not the same goal whatsoever.
And they did it first.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this guy's off to a bad start here. But his argument basically boils down to what you hear a lot from Phish fans, and Hannah's kind of already alluded to some of it. They are talented musicians. You can't deny that, right? Particularly Anastasio's guitar playing.
Like virtuosos, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. The jamming, quote unquote, that most people complain about is actually, it's great spontaneous improvisation that leads to unexpected results, making every performance of the same song unique. Yes, that's true, but what if you just don't like what they're doing? Right? It might be unique and different each time, but if none of it's ever anything that someone likes, why would you give a shit?
I also have a horrible, horrible problem with creativity that's not confined. You can't just have wide open spaces. You have to put a box around you and operate in the box. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to anyone except you, and it's selfish.
So sorry, Comrade Hayes.
Otherwise, it's aimless noodling.
I know. I have the ancestors of all my depression grandparents just coursing through me who are just y'all are having too much fun. We need to work. This has to be serious. Quit just having a good time for the sake of a good time. That's selfish.
So here's a quote from this article defending that I think kind of sums it up. He says, Phish has served for many music nerds like me as a kind of antidote to stale predictability of the rock concert. I probably see 100 non-Phish shows a year. I love live music, but I get so tired of the same thing, the same approach, the same quote-unquote professionalism. And then I go see a Phish show and get to watch these guys head out on stage with only a vague sense of where even the first song is going to take them, what notes they're going to find themselves playing, and what energy they're going to pull out of the air, what the hell is going to happen.
They're going to make a lot of mistakes. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I understand this guy's point, but in the end, how can they not understand that some people don't want to hear this aimless attempt at stuff? They want to hear something that's got a little more structure to it.
Well, you can go to a Steely Dan concert.
You certainly can.
Hannah.
Gladly.
I love Steely Dan.
R.I.P. Walter.
Oh man, yes. What a sad loss that was.
I know you can't really go to one now, but that's okay.
No.
Donald's gonna tour.
So moving on, the second article was written a day after by a guy named Miles Raymer, and his article is titled, "No, It Really Is Them, Why It's Okay to Hate Phish."
I love this headline.
He's about as hyperbolic as the first guy, and so it kind of detracts from their point. Quote, "The ultimate reason that more people don't like Phish," says Henderson, "is that we're music snobs. This is wrong. The real reason is that Phish makes terrible music." So again, a bit of hyperbole. But he goes on to tell this story about how a former coworker tries to turn him on to Phish by giving him a CD of a concert where the band plays a few songs with Jay-Z, specifically Jay-Z songs 99 Problems and Big Pimpin'.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. He then says the following:
Whew.
Going back and listening to these versions of 99 Problems and Big Pimpin' from the Phish concert has helped me sort of figure out what exactly is wrong with Phish. They like great music. They just don't seem to understand what makes it great.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
He continues, "Phish has always been extremely open about their influences, which include a ton of bands that I love. But as a group, they seem to have extracted only the least compelling elements of them for their own music. Given the entirety of over a half century of American pop music to draw from, they've created an assemblage of funk bass lines that do nothing to move the heart or the ass, aimlessly wandering guitar solos, and the skimpiest and least memorable melodies imaginable."
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against any of those points.
Yes.
I mean, this kind of follows in exactly with my point. And this idea of funk bass lines that do nothing to move the heart of the ass is really where I want to get into like the specifics of some of their music and with these examples I have.
Exhibit
So
A.
I think Exhibit A. I think basically what's being described in these articles, it can be boiled down into what I think are two fundamental misunderstandings that I think like diehard Phish fans typically have. And the first is a complete inability to entertain the idea that people don't like Phish's music. They just don't, and they probably never will. You know, I've seen this happen before.
What do you mean? Nobody does that. Not even anybody in this podcast.
If a person doesn't like Phish, a Phish fan will usually start by saying, you just haven't listened to enough of their stuff. Mm-hmm. And that turns into, but you got to hear them live if the person still doesn't like it. Then if the person actually goes to the show and still doesn't like it, it just turns into, well, you must have caught an off show. It's never the band. It's always something external.
Right.
They just can't.
Sounds like a narcissist.
Yeah, they just can't understand the idea that people just don't like this kind of music.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like all the arguments about their improvisational nature, them being talented musicians, like who cares if you don't actually like the music?
Right.
They just can't get that concept.
This is like very much an embodiment of white male privilege too. It's like, you just don't get it. Or like, you know, or just being allowed to go up on stage and do whatever you want. So many other artists would never be allowed to do that
Right.
at fucking all. Most people aren't. Do you think they would have let Al Green on stage and be like, just you know, fucking take it away, man. Just don't worry about
do
it.
whatever.
Yeah, no,
Totally
absolutely
fine.
not. Well, it's funny you mentioned the like bastion of white male privilege, because I think I would compare like the diehard insular nature of Phish, you know, not just to the Juggalos, but it reminds me really of the most annoying strains of Christianity. You know, you have both groups who are focused on something to the point of monomania that it makes them completely incapable of empathizing with the critical opinions of outsiders.
Right.
Just like, I'm sorry, whatever you say that's contrary to what I believe, put my fingers in my ears, la, 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 right?
Yes. Because I have faith. I have faith that Phish is good. I have faith in the bean. I have faith in the noodles.
You have faith in the bean?
I don't know. I'm just riffing. I don't know where I'm going with this, Hayden. And that's totally fine.
Much like Phish.
Much like Phish, you don't know where you're going with this. But I'll have one more point here, and it's what I think is the second fundamental misunderstanding that Phish have, and it's what the music of Phish actually is. So drawing from personal interactions and from a lot of the stuff I've read online, you often hear people refer to this band as jazzy or funky or experimental, or the even less understood atonal. You hear this all the time. And being a very mediocre jazz musician myself, I've had a discussion about what is jazz over the years with people all the time. And it's a very slippery thing to kind of pin down. Yeah. Putting a minor seventh chord and playing something other than a pentatonic scale does not make it jazz. And that's not to say that the band doesn't play jazz. So here's the first example of a song which I would say is probably their most straight ahead, quote unquote, jazz song. It's called Magilla or Magilla, Magilla. So we'll listen to just a bit of that real quick. Hannah is visibly uncomfortable.
I can't stop seeing Fishman's right hand, like, shaking a cane at the cymbal in the jazz room.
Like, this has turned into, like, the music that would play in the background of, like, Monopoly on a Windows 97 computer game. And it's like, when did that happen? Like, it was kind of, something happened there. The uncanny valley, that's what happened.
I mean, there's nothing particularly bad about that. It just sounds like slightly above average high school students playing in their jazz band.
It's elevator music.
They sound better than that. Come on, that piano line is pretty complicated.
As a counterexample, here is Pat Martino, a jazz guitarist, with Joey DeFrancesco, the organ player, playing oleo, which is a type of jazz form called a rhythm changes, which is what Magilla is. So it's technically the same chord progression, and you'll see it has a very similar kind of melody to it. But the difference being is these guys really know how to fucking swing.
This is infinitely better.
It's because they emulsified the dressing, Hayden. Like, they had the ingredients in the bowl, and they said, and you know what? Let's whisk it together. And they fucking did that. Phish doesn't whisk it together.
I think what the primary difference here, I mean, yes, it is a faster song, but the reason it swings harder and it feels more cohesive, like you're saying, Hannah, is because these guys are listening to each other in a way that Phish doesn't.
Why don't they listen to each other? I am curious, like, why don't you think they listen to each other?
Well, that kind of level of improvisation in jazz, it takes decades of performance, practice, and mastery to get on a level where you can communicate with other people like that. And Phish, while they've been playing together for so long, the kind of music they play doesn't really require them to do that. So they've never
But it does require them to do that, because then it would be good.
I would say, like, the moments where they come the closest to achieving the kind of transcendence or whatever you want to call it are the moments where they are listening to each other, and they're not as often as you would want it to be.
Is it just an ego thing, or is it just a, like...
Yes, I think so.
Like, they're just so into what they're doing that they don't care about what the other person's doing?
I think Trey is probably the most to blame there for taking the lead too often and, like, forcing everyone to kind of follow his lead too often. Whereas if it were more split, especially with Paige McConnell, I think you would see a lot more variation in, like, where things go.
Right.
Yeah.
And my point would be, if you listen to that Magilla song, is that Trey and Paige, the piano player, are probably the most capable of doing that kind of conversational improvisation in a jazz vein. and it's really Fishman and Gordon, the drummer and the bassist, that are kind of stiff. It sounds right, but it just doesn't quite have the flavor of someone who really is steeped in that kind of music.
Yeah, Gordon doesn't really play with any feel, despite being in a band that's not about nothing but feeling constantly.
Moving on.
I'll agree with
moving
that.
on from the Phish is not jazz or even jazzy. They're also not funk. Okay, this is the thing that really grinds my gears.
You can't just like flap your thumb on a bass string and turn on a Crybaby wah pedal and be playing funk.
Yeah,
Yes.
the term funk just gets thrown around way too much with this group. And so here's an example I found.
No, they're gonna get obliterated in this
Oh
comparison.
yeah, I mean this really frustrates me to no end.
It's gonna be
talk
bad.
about fucking mayonnaise. But in an article from thethrillist.com, there's an author. He's writing again. It's essentially like a sort of a primer, like why do all your friends like Phish? You know, and he's a big Phish head, and he's defending the band. He poses all these hypothetical questions, and one of which is, what kind of music does Phish jam to? And he describes all these different things using these terms really, haphazardly. But he describes a live performance of the song Ghost as, quote, booty shaken, thick funk. And he has a particular version.
I left my body. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I left my booty.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. But here is the version of Ghost that this author is claiming to be, quote, booty shaking funk.
And never have to worry. I'd call him instead.
Wait for a particularly bad fill here.
Incessant came in actions. He never spoke a word. And maybe I laid down the phone.
You got the vocals sound like shit.
Be heard.
But that is not funk. That is just a somewhat syncopated rock beat.
It's like funk if funk had an Oxycontin dependence.
Sadly, yes.
All right, to get my one little bit of music theory in here for the day. The difference between rock and funk is that funk has a primary syncopation on the 16th note, which pushes a little further between the beat, I guess is a good way to describe it. And as an example of what I think is actual funk, this is a bit of a song called Blast Off by the band Lettuce, which is somewhat of a jam band fellow traveler.
Hell yeah, bro.
But this is more what I would consider pure funk. So here we go, Blast Off.
Yeah. I mean, there's not even a comparison to the pocket between those two. I mean, it's a deep pocket. on
Yeah,
that
I mean, so let me ask you this question, Hannah. I don't know, have you ever heard Lettuce before or this song?
Yes.
So I would argue, and you feel free to agree or disagree, but if you were to show something like that to just a casual listener who had never heard of this band or Phish or any of these jam bands, I think at the very least, this is something that you can, quote, shake your ass to.
Yes, I would agree.
And that, to me, is the primary difference between funk and whatever the hell Phish is saying or the Phish fans are saying is funk.
heroin wah gaze. That's what the genre title is.
It's like handing someone a volleyball and being like, this is a cantaloupe. Or like handing someone a tennis ball and saying, this is an apple. It's not. They're both round. That's it.
And they'll both bounce around the room.
Yeah, and they're both
good one, buddy.
roughly the same size. But that's it. That's the end of the comparisons.
I mean, I don't bring these examples up to have as this overarching criticism of the band's music per se, but to point out, again, that I think there's a disconnect between Phish fans and what they think Phish is.
Do you know what the disconnect is?
What?
Drugs. All right, that's enough of this. Let's go to the comments.
I love that the point of this podcast is just like, you need drugs to listen to Phish. How many times do I have to tell you?
I will say it's not true, though, since I've become a remote worker, like Phish shows have helped pass my day quite a bit while I'm drinking coffee. So it's not entirely true.
Yeah.
All right, so Hayden did not go on a YouTube dive. He went on a Phish.net dive, correct?
I did both. Unlike, usually I try to, like, tie all the commentary together with some overarching point that I think is trying to be made. In this case, it's just a bunch of funny usernames and Phish fans sucking, so... It's a little lowbrow for me. But we'll start with the Phish.net forums. I had intended upon like trying to find some discussions of the songs that Hannah had picked amongst the fans, but I quickly got derailed by just like staring at funny usernames. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you like, well, I already blew my Poo Nutties wad, but I'll give you a couple of good ones here. The first one is Foam Chomsky.
I can't.
The next one is...
Oh, my God.
The next one is Sack Balls.
Classic. Just go with the classic.
And the real winner here, Rubbing Alcoholic. Yes, those are some highlights of the names. There was also this weird thing happening on like the recent boards where people were posting like very strange thread titles, like for example, like something about the Hershey squirts, and then like you would click on you would click on it, and they would just be passing these codes around, like these code numbers, and I have no fucking idea what they're doing. There was like 5 to 10 different posts like this where there's like they all had some sort of grotesque name, and then people were just like posting like 15-digit codes.
It's got to be something to do with buying and selling drugs, I assume.
I guess so.
They're using it like the Silk Road or something.
You got any Hershey squirts, bro?
That's disturbing.
I also did find a thread with a particularly obnoxious fan talking about Tweezer and why they love it. And here's a little quote of what they had to say. I was just remembering when Trey went into the jam and how cool the effects were. They just took over. His delay and echo is so cool. Trey looking to the sky, and I was looking up also thinking he's pulling the music from the ocean air.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, I agree that he's also trying to do that, but shut the fuck up about it.
I feel like the way that like Phish fans like write reviews of Phish music it's the same kind of like snobbery that you might get in like a Pitchfork article, but they have like the vocabulary of a 5th grader.
Yeah, they dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
I would like to compare what I hear about Phish songs from fans to what, like, when they go in the dining room of a restaurant on Triple D and they ask the customers what they think of the food. And it's just the same bullshit over and over. Mm. Like, people will say shit like, the flavors explode in my mouth. And you're just like,
what does that mean?
God in heaven. You know, like, it's stuff like that where it's just like they all say the same bullshit, and to them it's so deep and profound, and to you you're just like, what does that even mean?
I'm so glad you brought that up because unbeknownst to you, most likely, I have found a way to mention Guy Fieri a lot of times in the history of this podcast.
I figured we were going to go there. Let's go there.
I've talked about Guy more times than Josh is comfortable with already, so thank you for taking it back there once again. Back into bird country.
Yes.
All right. So let's just move on to the YouTube comments. This is just I went through every single comment on the most recent Tweezer from 8/1/21. It's 35 minutes long, and I listened to it twice, and I enjoyed it. But if you need any more evidence that Phish fans are truly insufferable, here come some of the comments on the Tweezer from this month.
Oh, I can't wait.
Jim Walton says, "This Tweezer scrambled my eggs like they haven't been scrambled in a very long time."
Oh, Lord.
Wow.
I don't know what it's like to have that feeling at
scrambled?
all. No, I really don't.
But have you ever
Maybe
yanked on a
someday.
tunic? Have you yanked on a tunic or dangled a stash?
I'm 110% sure I've never yanked on a tunic.
But not about you dangled a stash though.
Maybe.
All right.
That's
If
possible.
she knew what that was, she could tell you.
Yeah. But I unequivocally know I've never yanked a tunic.
my face.
Jess has to say, this tweezer gives me all the warm fuzzies and cold chilies simultaneously. Fish is my religion and the ocean is love.
Why? Wait, what is the ocean? Is the ocean a thing in Phish
You
world?
could have just ended on. You didn't need the ocean is love.
This show is in Georgia somewhere, so I think it's in the Atlanta. I think it's in the Atlanta area. Like I don't.
So far from an ocean still, that doesn't make any sense.
I can't imagine where Phish would play in Georgia if not an Atlanta suburb or amphitheater. You know.
Yeah.
Stan has to say, Phish loves organic, heady, dank vaccines. Make sure to get them and wear a mask while doing your nitrous. Little political commentary from Stan here.
Shoot, Stan went there.
Responsible drug use.
Hey, speaking of nitrous, let's talk about nitrous for a second, because I recently...
Okay.
So, last week, I had to go to the dentist, and they wanted me to do a deep cleaning procedure, which is, like, kind of invasive. And, like, I have a lot of anxiety about people having sharp tools in their hands in my fucking mouth.
Understandable.
So I asked for gas, because I haven't had nitrous in... I mean, I don't know if I've ever had it, to be honest with you, but my dentist has the option, so I was like, I don't care how much it costs, like, give it to me.
I love the idea of you going, like, into deep medical debt because you were like, just hit me with the drugs.
It was pretty amazing, and I'm looking forward to doing it again on Wednesday. That's all I have to say about that for now. I'll check back in with my second. I had a pretty bizarre experience the first time that I was going to tell you guys about, but I don't know if I really want to talk about it.
When you were in the dentist chair with this nitrous, did your vasoconstrictors come slowly undone?
Oh, can't just wait till we're old, Josh. No, I was like breathing like aggressively heavily into the nitrous tank. It had to have been noticeable to the technician. Like this guy is trying to get fucked up.
This guy must be into fish.
Yeah. All right, back to the comments to close them up here. The kid behind the computer says, "This helped my dog fall asleep if it's any constellation." I've got two more and we'll close it up here. Malevolent Elephant agrees with Hannah in some ways. They say, I would love Phish. They would be my absolute number one if it weren't for their shitty, nonsensical lyrics.
They're so bad.
And in closing, Michael has to say, yes, I will gladly step into this freezer. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. to my Tweez Talk.
Could you imagine Trey Anastasio giving a TED Talk?
Oh, what if he gave a TED Talk but only spoke in his own lyrics?
Oh.
Is there, like, fan fiction about Phish?
Oh my God, that's an excellent question.
Because you know, like, all these things that, like, make people feel a part of a tribe, which is part of the reason our country's falling apart. Like, Phish seems very ripe to have, like, all of the offshoots.
I gotta say, I Googled immediately Phish fan fiction, and one of the first links that popped up has to do with Guy Fieri. on the Phish.net. I swear to God. One of the first things that popped up is a Phish.net forum post called Guy Fieri in Your Kitchen Fan Fiction.
Oh my God.
Does he yank Trey's tunic?
Do you want to hear some of this?
I mean, this is too good not to go down this thread a little bit.
We can always cut it out later.
Yeah, this is a supposed interaction between Phish.net forum user Ghost Lim and Guy Fieri. So it'll be alternating. So Guy says, "So we're here at Ghost Lim's kitchen today. Ghost Lim, what are we cooking up?" Ghost Lim says, "We're going to be making some chicken nuggets with a twist." I can dig it, but what kind of twist are we talking about? Melted cheese on top of the nuggets. Out of sight. Dynamite. Okay, I'll just get the ingredients out here. Some frozen chicken nuggets and some cheese singles.
Is this getting sexual at some point?
That's a big bag of nuggets. Was that a Sam's Club purchase?
Oh my God.
I can't believe it also talks about chicken nuggets. This is amazing. Let's see where it goes. It's pretty long. Let's see here. Now we're getting down to where Guy is sampling the nuggets. Righteous, let me dunk one of these bad boys. I'll just do a little figure 8 swirl through Saucetown, USA. Get it nice and covered. Guy... Guy takes a bite. Got some real nice depth of flavor going on. The rubbery cheese on top provides a nice textural balance between the breaded nug and the sinewy sauces. I'm surprised. I thought this was going to taste like a hobo's shoe.
There's absolutely zero chance I'm cutting that out.
Yeah.
Is that the end?
No, I just gave you the best parts. It's a little too long to read the whole thing.
Oh my god!
But nothing sexual happens.
No, they don't hook
That's
up.
really what you're jonesing for there. Hannah?
No, I was like, how do we transition from this?
It does end with a fist bump action. So you can interpret that how you want.
Oh goodness! I think maybe we should end on that. Well, unless Hannah, you have anything that's been left unsaid.
No, this was like a therapy session for me. Thank you. I feel so unburdened. I feel like my load has been lightened because I'm not exactly wrong.
No, you're absolutely
It's not
not.
just me. It is actually them.
Yeah.
No, and despite loving them my whole life, I do admit that they suck terribly.
And I think we may have an issue here because I'm of the mind that we're just going to have you back again before we even get Reed on the podcast.
I have so many songs that I hate.
Good. Send us the list.
Excellent. Yeah, we'd love to have you back.
Okay, great.
So where can people find your work, Hannah?
Probably the best way to keep track of me, if you want to do that, is to just go on Instagram, and my handle is Hayes, Hayes, Hannah, Hannah.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and we definitely need to have you on again. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time.
I'm going to go dangle a stash.
I'm not going to go yank a tunic.
This Song Sucks is brought to you by the Alabama Take. Follow us on Instagram at This Song Sucks Pod and find our blog at thealabamatake.com. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can even email us at thisSongSucksPod@gmail.com.